Sorry to keep you waiting. This is the Mop-Up. I'm David Feldman in New York City, which has the greatest mayor in the world. We are getting reports that Border Commander Greg Bovino, who ran immigration enforcement in Los Angeles, Chicago, Charlotte, and Minnesota, is out, like permanently. He's not just been demoted, but according to new reports in the Atlantic magazine, Bovino is retiring. He's taking early retirement. Good riddance. The Atlantic magazine reporting late Monday night that Bovino has been stripped of the title Commander-at-Large that was given to him last year by the Trump White House. Two Department of Homeland Security officials telling the Atlantic magazine's Nick Muroff that Bovino is done, will return to his old job in El Centro, California, working for Border Patrol, but is expected to take early retirement very, very soon. Now, CNN, most of the major outlets are not going with Bovino's retirement, at least when we started the show early Tuesday morning. But CNN is reporting that not only has Bovino been stripped of his border commander title, but he has also lost control of his official social media account, which Bovino used during the past year to promote himself with glamour videos of Bovino in slow motion, walking through clouds of smoke in a long trench coat straight out of the Schutzstaffel, with imagery worthy of Leni Riefenstahl, where he promised to keep America's blood and soil safe. Responding to news that Trump pulled Bovino from Minneapolis and replaced him with border czar Tom Homan, Brian O'Hara, Minneapolis's chief of police said, quote, Bovino was not helpful. On Sunday, despite countless videos and witness accounts saying otherwise, Bovino insisted Alex Preddy, the nurse killed Saturday morning by border agents, was brandishing a weapon aimed at federal agents, and he was intending to do, quote, maximum damage. Bovino said on Sunday that the real victims in the killing were the border agents, were the men who killed Preddy. Minnesota's Attorney General Keith Ellison telling CNN's Anderson Cooper late Monday night he is glad to see Greg Bovino go, but added, quote, I have zero trust in the Department of Homeland Security. Keith Ellison said Monday night, quote, there's no way I can trust anything that they say or do, including preserve evidence. Why would they preserve evidence of a crime in a case where they're denying that there was any crime committed by these officers at all? I just don't believe it. In the immediate aftermath of Saturday's execution of Alex Preddy, a 37-year-old ICU nurse, Minneapolis police did begin an investigation, but soon found the murder scene roped off, with federal agents forbidding them from collecting evidence or interviewing witnesses. Hennepin County's district attorney and Keith Ellison, the state attorney general, filed a motion before a federal judge asking for an injunction preventing the Department of Homeland Security and FBI from tampering with evidence. More on that in a second. So there's been a shakeup. Tom Homan, who ran ICE during the Obama and first Trump administration, devised the family separation policy with Stephen Miller. Well, Tom Homan is going to be the ugly face of Trump's border enforcement, taking questions from the press in Minneapolis, and he'll be organizing the raids. This is the result of an internal power struggle between Department of Homeland Security Chief Kristi Noem and Homan, the border czar. Since the two of them assumed their current posts last year, Homan has been trying to remove Noem, calling her unqualified and a self-promoter. Where would he get an idea like that? Forbes late Monday evening raising the possibility that next on the chopping block is Kristi Noem. There are reports that Trump has grown tired of Noem. He met with Kristi Noem and her de facto chief of staff, Corey Lewandowski, for 2 hours Monday night. They requested a meeting with Donald Trump to save their ass. But Donald Trump has had it, so we've heard, with Kristi Noem. He's privately appalled by her authorization for the purchase of 2 Gulfstream jets for her own personal use, his and her, one for Kristi and another for Corey Lewandowski. She also paid $220 million on an advertising campaign that came out of the DHS budget, the Department of Homeland Security budget. It's featuring her in a cowboy hat and chaps on a horse in front of Mount Rushmore, urging immigrants to self-deport. Donald Trump was infuriated by these ads. A large slice of that advertising budget was given to Homeland Security spokesliar Tricia McLaughlin's husband. You might remember back in November, ProPublica broke the story that Kristi Noem handed a no-bid contract to Tricia McLaughlin's husband, Ben Yoho, the CEO of political consulting firm The Strategy Group, which took home several $1 million to produce some of those commercials of Kristi Noem on a horse. According to this report in ProPublica, all government contracts must be open bid with no favor shown to prospective hires. But Kristi Noem invoked emergency powers, claiming the border crisis was so critical there wasn't time to invite other consulting groups to bid on her commercial. Yes, it's an emergency, damn it. The country is being invaded by marauding bands of murderers, drug dealers, and rapists. We need to get Kristi Noem in chaps and a cowboy hat, pour 6 tons of makeup on her face so she can cut a series of commercials telling rapists and murderers to self-deport. Because when there's a ticking time bomb, we don't have time for business as usual. Trump is also appalled by Kristi Noem's sordid and torrid relationship with Corey Lewandowski, her de facto Department of Homeland Chief of Staff. And he was also Trump's former campaign manager. He was Trump's first campaign manager back in 2015, but he was forced to resign after he was caught on video assaulting a female reporter from Breitbart News. There's a list of sexual assault allegations against Corey Lewandowski as long as Kristi Noem's false eyelashes. But word is, Kristi Noem, the woman who took Cricket, the family puppy, into a gravel pit and shot her to death, for some reason, a woman like that is madly in love with Corey Lewandowski, allegedly. And several women have accused Corey Lewandowski of physical and sexual assault. And for some reason, the woman doing all the deporting of children and women is in love with a man who has been accused by multiple women of physical abuse. But you know what they say? Love is blind, especially when Corey Lewandowski just gave you 2 black eyes. New York Magazine reports the worst-kept secret in Washington, D.C. is this affair, this this abusive relationship, I suppose, between Lewandowski and Kristi Noem, both married, just not to each other. Lewandowski is also said to be violating federal law. He's a special government employee. That's also known as an unpaid special government employee. Unpaid. What's that about? Well, Elon Musk came to the Trump White House last year with the same exact title, unpaid. See, here's how it works. You don't get paid by the government, and you're only allowed to work for the government 130 days per year. And 1 day longer, if it's 131 days, you have to disclose your financials. You can't work for the executive branch and get paid unless you disclose your financials. Well, Lewandowski doesn't want to disclose his financials, but he wants to work for the Department of Homeland Security. He's been there almost a year, way more than the 130 days he's allowed to. But he still claims I'm not full-time. Reportedly, Corey Lewandowski works from his home. Sometimes he sneaks into the office, so there's no physical record of his actually working for the Department of Homeland Security. But the truth is, as Congressman Jared Moskowitz pointed out the other day, Lewandowski is running things. You want something from the Department of Homeland Security, especially from FEMA, you got to speak to Corey Lewandowski. What's that about? I'll tell you. When Kristi Noem took over Homeland Security, her first mandate was that no payments beyond $100,000 could be made to outside Department of Homeland contractors without her signatures. This is why it took 3 days for FEMA to dispatch search and rescue helicopters after flash floods hit central Texas last July. How many lives could have been saved had Kristi Noem not taken 3 days to sign off on the rescue copters? This is why Lewandowski isn't taking a salary, because he's the one authorizing all these contracts, and he is banking on the revolving door, which makes procurement officers in the government, especially Pentagon generals, it eventually makes them very rich once they go into the private sector. It's a form of legal bribery. So it works like this. I'll give you this contract for Department of Homeland Security, but once I'm no longer with the Department of Homeland Security, you have to figure out a way to kick some of this back to me in the form of a job where I don't even have to show up. That's how it works. This is why Greg Bovino reportedly just took early retirement. According to Atlantic Magazine, he got demoted, and they sent him back to El Centro, California, and he said, I think he's like 55. He said, I'm out of here. I'm going. I'm taking my early retirement, and I'm going to cash in. The same way border czar Tom Homan cashed in. Same way he was caught on tape back in 2024 accepting a bag filled with $50,000 in cash. It was given to him by an undercover agent posing as a border security executive, a private contractor looking for business from the Department of Homeland Security. So he paid Homan $50,000 in a paper bag, expecting Homan to give this contractor, he was an FBI undercover agent, he was posing as a contractor. Homan took the money and promised to give this phony Homeland Security expert access and future Homeland Security contracts in a future Trump administration. Now, that FBI investigation was ongoing until Trump was inaugurated. It started in 2024 under the Biden administration. The FBI, which is supposed to be an independent agency, was tracking Homan after Trump won to see what kind of contracts Homan would get for this FBI undercover agent. But when the Trump Justice Department found out about it, they closed the investigation. The first thing I asked is, what happened to the cash? Did he declare it on his taxes? Did he return it to the FBI? That was the very first question I asked. And when the Democrats win the midterms, the House Ways and Means Committee can subpoena Tom Homan's tax records. I want to know, did he declare the $50,000 he got from the FBI? Well, here is border czar Tom Homan. He's now taken over the Department of Homeland Security. He's not just took Bovino's lead role, and he's eyeing Kristi Noem's job. Here is border czar Tom Homan defending himself and his sterling reputation on Meet the Press.
Do want to give you the opportunity to respond to some lingering questions about you. As you know, in an undercover operation in 2024, the FBI recorded you accepting a bag which was determined to contain $50,000 from agents posing as business executives who said you indicated you could help win government contracts in the second Trump administration. I want to stress there was an investigation. It was closed last year. The Justice Department said it found, quote, no credible evidence of any criminal wrongdoing.
That is the sin of omission. The Justice Department said there was no credible evidence because it was the Trump Justice Department. The investigation began under the Joe Biden Justice Department when the Trump Justice Department was told by the FBI, we have Tom Homan taking 50 grand from an undercover agent. All the FBI wanted to know was if Homan kicked up to Trump. I'm sure he did. So what did Tom Homan do with that cash? Here is... I have pictures of him showing you what he did with that cash. Here is Tom Homan. He's in a for-profit ICE detention center offering female inmates $20 each if they let him watch them shower while he takes off his pants and punches his groinal, crotch, and penile area repeatedly with a crowbar. That is not artificial intelligence. That is an actual photo of Tom Homan with a bag of cash asking women in a ICE detention center shower room if he can watch them bathe while he takes off his pants and punches his groinal crotch and penile area repeatedly with a crowbar. That's what he did with some of the $50,000. Anyway, here is Tom Homan defending his honor.
Where is that $50,000? Did you keep it or did you return it?
I didn't take $50,000 from anybody, and that's a question for the FBI. I'm not going to give this story any more air. Bottom line, I did nothing illegal. I did nothing, and the FBI and DOJ review this. No credible evidence I did anything because I didn't do anything illegal.
But was there $50,000 in the bag, and did you return it?
I'm not giving the story any more air. This is an attack on my integrity and my professionalism. I'm not addressing it. That's a question with the FBI.
Can you address, given that it's been recorded, did you keep the money? Did you return the money?
I did not keep any. $50,000 is ridiculous. The FBI has been clearing this, and it irritates me. This story keeps going on and on and on, even though I've been found to do nothing inappropriate. So I'm not going to ask any more of these questions.
But just, did you return the money?
I didn't have any money to return.
Okay.
I didn't take the $50,000, bottom line.
Let me ask you, you're saying you did nothing unlawful. Would you be comfortable with the FBI releasing the recordings?
That's a decision of the FBI.
But it might be a decision for the FBI, but would you be comfortable if they released
Again, I'm not
those
getting
recordings?
I'm not getting ahead of the FBI in this investigation.
But can you just say, on a personal level, would you be comfortable releasing the recordings?
I am not going to get ahead of the FBI. That's their decision.
I did not take the $50,000. I immediately gave it to my bookie. Well, I trust him. I do. Don't you? Leave a comment. I trust Tom Homan and his professionalism. I trust the guy who came up with the family separation policy. I trust the guy who came up with the family separation policy has enough integrity not to accept a bag filled with $50,000 in cash. Because, it's one thing to take a 2-year-old child screaming, rip this child from its mother, then ship the child back to Honduras. I mean, it's one thing to grab a 5-year-old kid with stage 4 cancer and shove that kid onto a plane, sending it back to Honduras without the medicine this kid needs for their stage 4 cancer. But I don't know. I draw the line when it comes to accepting a bag filled with cash. What do you think Tom Homan is? A monster? By the way, this photograph of the beautiful Tom Homan, he's as beautiful on the outside as he is on the inside. This is a photograph of Tom Homan This is Tom Homan every single Monday morning, back at work after spending the weekend at his favorite slaughterhouse, stink fingering a pig. And by pig, I mean his wife. Here is Tom Homan visiting his wife. His wife is a pig. This is where she lives. And there's Tom Homan visiting his mistress. And here he is about to eat a baby. That's Tom Homan about to eat a baby. These are not doctored photos. And he never took the 50 grand. This isn't AI, and Tom Homan never took 50 grand from an undercover agent. Well, I'm filled with nothing but truth. Obviously, those are doctored photos. But this is true, okay? What I'm about to tell you is absolutely true. A lot of people don't know this, but every Friday at exactly 4 p.m. before Donald Trump flies off to Mar-a-Lago, Stephen Miller and Tom Homan, they came up with a family separation policy. They are brought into the Oval Office to engage in what Trump calls an ugly off. This is true. And I'm sworn to secrecy, but Tom Homan and Stephen Miller have to fight it out. Then an ugly off. Trump is the referee. Each man has to prove they are the ugliest person in the world. It's called an ugly off. This is the mop-up. I'm David Feldman in New York City. Thank you for joining me. This is Tom Homan visiting his wife at a slaughterhouse because his wife is a pig. Borders are Tom Homan. So, as you know, we seem to have reached a tipping point with hundreds of federal agents now being ordered to leave Minnesota. Jacob Frey, the mayor of Minneapolis, confirming he has been told to expect a major reduction of immigration officers. NBC News reporting that the border agents who executed Alex Preddy were wearing body cams. And I suspect this is exactly why Bovino was gone by Monday. See, the execution took place on a Saturday morning. Bovino immediately insisted Preddy was brandishing a weapon, aiming it at his border agents, intending to do, quote, maximum damage. Now, I don't know if this is true, but I suspect if these agents were wearing body cams and were being told they were wearing body cams, I believe these body cams, the footage reveals what the other videos that we saw reveal, but much clearer. Those body cams will prove incontrovertible evidence that they pinned Preddy, an ICU nurse who works in the VA hospital. They pinned him down and then removed his gun and then pumped 10 bullets into him in 5 seconds. Now, I suspect these body cams are even worse than that ICE agent's cell phone camera recording the killing of Renee Good, where somebody, presumably ICE agent Jonathan Ross, after he allegedly shot Renee Good, muttered effing bitch right after he fired 4 shots into her. So there already is video on social media, I'm not going to play it, showing one of those border agents applauding after the 10 shots were fired. And I suspect those body cams, I suspect the footage is going to offer up sights and sounds exposing who the real criminals are. And they are the ones doing border enforcement. That's why I believe Bovino was gone on Monday. It's a pretty quick departure. It means, and this is just conjecture on my part, Those body cam videos are way more horrific than anything we've seen. On Monday, U.S. District Judge Eric C. Tostred in Minnesota, St. Paul, heard arguments on whether to lift his emergency injunction ordering Department of Homeland Security officials not to tamper with any evidence from that murder scene. Body cam footage. That injunction was at the request of Hennepin County DA and the Minnesota Attorney General. They are hoping to investigate. We'll see. They weren't allowed to investigate Renee Good. Frederick A.P. Siegart, a lawyer representing the Trump Justice Department, told the judge his emergency order should be lifted. The Trump Justice Department saying such an order is unnecessary, and the Trump Justice Department told the judge that the body cam footage from these border agents who murdered Alex Preddy, it will not be tampered with. But the Minneapolis Star-Tribune reporting this morning that the Justice Department is refusing to say whether they would share any of that evidence, the body cam footage, with Minneapolis and Minnesota prosecutors. People magazine reporting that in the immediate aftermath of the shooting, a doctor rushed to Alex Preddy to treat him, but the doctor was shoved aside as border agents withheld CPR in order to count the number of bullet holes in Alex Preddy's body. That's People magazine. As I said, those agents were wearing body cam. You know, before Monday, the footage was reviewed. And it has to be far, far worse than anything we've ever seen. It's why Bavino was gone by Monday. How does a border commander, the commander at large of this operation, Greg Bavino, he had access to this body cam footage. And he went out the next day, he went out that day, Saturday and then Sunday, and insisted border agents were the victims and that Alex Preddy was brandishing a gun, quote, intent on doing maximum damage. Now, he went out and said that despite all the video we saw that says otherwise. Bavino saw the body cam footage, and he still went out there and said this. That's why I believe he was gone by Monday. Within hours of this murder, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem described Preddy's actions as, quote, fitting the definition of domestic terrorism. So this is a really bad look for the White House politically, and it's why Kristi Noem and Corey Lewandowski met with Trump for 2 hours Monday night. He's looking for any excuse to take Kristi and Corey to the gravel pit, shall we say. Stephen Miller, the Deputy White House Chief of Staff, immediately after Preddy was murdered, he told reporters Preddy was, quote, an assassin who tried to murder border agents. And Stephen Miller also labeled Preddy a domestic terrorist. Late Sunday night, Trump spoke to the Wall Street Journal, gave a 5-minute interview. He was trying to do damage control. He refused to come to the defense of the border agents who murdered Preddy. And then he said, we'll be leaving Minnesota sometime soon. It's the footage from their body cams. So you think Pam Bondi is slow-walking the release of the Epstein files? Good luck trying to get your hands on the body cam footage of Alex Preddy's execution. That body cam footage is going to be locked in the same vault with all the other Epstein videos we're not supposed to. You have a better chance of screening Jerry Lewis's The Day the Clown Cried than you do seeing the footage from Sunday's murder of Alex Preddy. The Day the Clown Cried is locked up in a vault somewhere. Jerry Lewis, nobody's allowed to see The Day the Clown Cried. The Daily News reporting that witnesses to this murder were detained by Border Patrol agents for hours. Who detains witnesses for 8 hours? Some were held in the Whipple building where criminals are held. They weren't allowed to speak to anyone, including a lawyer. They were finally released without any charges. But local police were forbidden from talking to any of them. It's like a scene out of Oliver Stone's JFK. Well, the Texas Tribune reporting that Texas Republican Senator Ted Cruz is calling for a thorough investigation of what really happened Sunday morning. Texas House Republican and Ted Kennedy impersonator Michael McCaul is also calling for a thorough investigation, something we're not hearing after the January 7th murder of Renee Good. That's ICE agent. Now take a look at this. This is ICE agent, supposedly Jonathan Ross, firing at least 2 shots into Renee Good's driver's side window. And then his cell phone, which recorded the whole thing, picks up someone's voice saying, "effing bitch," after he was shot. How clear? How much clearer do you have to make it? This is him firing into the driver's side window as she's driving away. How was his life in danger? But Todd Blanche, Donald Trump's defense attorney, who's now serving as Deputy Attorney General, he said there is absolutely no need for the Justice Department Civil Rights Division to open up an investigation into the murder of Renee Good. This picture is all you need to see to open up a civil rights investigation. This picture is why there is a Civil Rights Division inside the Justice Department. Instead, Kash Patel, the director of the FBI, opened up an investigation into Renee Good's wife, Becca, to see if she's part of a vast left-wing conspiracy. And this prompted several FBI agents, as well as U.S. attorneys working for the Justice Department in Minneapolis and Washington, D.C., to quit in protest. They look at this photograph, allegedly of ICE agent Jonathan Ross, pumping at least 2 shots into Renee Good's driver's side window while she is clearly driving away from him. Cell phone video seems to feature Jonathan Ross muttering, "effing bitch." Here is Kristi Noem being asked about Jonathan Ross, the ICE agent, calling Renee Good, the woman he just allegedly killed, an effing bitch. So this is Jake Tapper, and I bleeped the F word. You won't hear the F word, and you won't see any, I took out anything that's graphic.
Bitch.
Is that Agent Ross's voice calling Renee Good a fucking bitch?
I can't determine which one it is, but it could be, sir.
It could be, sir, but you don't want to find out. It could be, sir. Don't you think you should find out, Kristi Noem, if one of your ICE agents is a sociopath? Because only a sociopath pumps 4 bullets into a woman, her face, her breast, her chest, and then as she drives off, crashing into a parked car and dies, mutters, "effing bitch." Wouldn't you like to find out if somebody who works for you killed a woman and then right immediately after called her an effing bitch. Wouldn't you like to do a forensic analysis of that cell phone video to find out? Because that's a hate crime. It's against federal law to fire a gun and then call a woman an effing bitch. Gender is attacking women because they're women is a hate crime. Wouldn't you like to find out? Well, look at her face. The way she tries to hold a stiff upper lip. Leave a comment. What do you see? I've watched this a couple of times. She tries to offer up a stiff upper lip. What is she saying here? What is she saying?
It could be, sir.
See that little... Is she giving something away? Is there a brief moment of clarity? Is a puppy killer capable of a brief moment of clarity? So Trump has a problem. Again, he's faced far worse, but this is a political problem. The Guardian reports that Trump and Ted Cruz were speaking to Republican donors last year. Axios has 2 recordings of this meeting where Ted Cruz tells Trump in front of donors that his party is facing a bloodbath for the 2026 midterms because of tariffs. Cruz said the tariffs are creating a crisis of unaffordability. In one of the tapes, Ted Cruz reportedly told Trump that J.D. Vance is under the thrall of Tucker Carlson, and J.D. Vance will drag the Republican Party down if he has 2028 presidential ambitions. Trump is reportedly heard on one of the tapes telling Cruz, go F yourself, F you. But he used the actual F word. So we've been here before and before with Trump, and we always say Trump survives. But he doesn't always win. The 2018 midterms were a bloodbath. Nancy Pelosi became Speaker again. If Hakeem Jeffries is Speaker a year from now, he's going to have to declare martial law and shut down Congress, because that's where the real metaphorical bloodbath is going to take place. Tom Homan is going to have to tell us what he did with the $50,000 in cash. Jonathan Ross is going to have to testify. Bovino is going to have to testify to tell us what he saw in the body cam footage. Kristi Noem is going to have to testify. Pam Bondi is going to have to testify. So, Trump is a loser. I know it's hard, we forget that. He lost the 2020 presidential election. Just because Donald Trump isn't in prison and just because he did get reelected, it doesn't mean he's not a loser who declared bankruptcy at least 6 times. And right now, Trump has a political problem. He's not good at solving political problems. And the people around him have a political problem. And if they have a political problem right now, that means they're going to have a criminal problem and a civil litigation problem once he's no longer the president, if he's no longer the president. And remember, you can't be pardoned out of a civil lawsuit, and you can't be pardoned out of a state and local prosecution. Chris Madel, here's an example of the political problem Republicans have. Chris Madel is a well-known defense attorney in Minneapolis. He was, up until Monday, one of the top contenders for the Republican nomination for governor. On Monday, he announced he is dropping out of the race for governor, specifically because of how Trump's immigration enforcement has played out in his state. Madel said he initially supported Operation Metro Surge, thinking Trump and Bovino were going to keep their promises of only targeting the worst of the worst. Madel said Trump, however, proved these operations were only about retribution, punishing blue cities and blue states. He called the immigration operations unconstitutional and an unmitigated disaster. He then said Trump has made it impossible for any Republicans to win in Minnesota. So, he said, as a Republican, I'm dropping out. Or, and I know this sounds weird, you grow a pair and run as a Republican opposing Trump. Imagine that. Imagine being a Republican who doesn't quit, who stays and fights for some semblance of decency in the Republican Party. We always hear, well, he's one of the good, Bacon from Nebraska is quitting because he's one of the good guys. No, if you're a good guy, you stay and fight. Now, I know he's a brigadier general from the Air Force, Bacon, death threats. He's had enough. I get it. But why would I expect decency, however, from this guy Waddle? He's a defense attorney who, before dropping out of his race for the Republican nomination for governor of Minnesota, Waddle offered pro bono legal counsel to Jonathan Ross, the ICE agent who allegedly shot Renee Good and then allegedly muttered "effing bitch." So we're supposed to believe this defense attorney Waddle, who was a top contender for the Republican nomination for governor of Minnesota, we're supposed to believe he's an honorable man who dropped out of the race because he's appalled by immigration agents in Minnesota. But after Jonathan Ross allegedly shot Renee Good and called her an effing bitch, allegedly, Waddle offered free legal services to this ICE agent. Why are you offering pro bono services? The Department of Homeland Security provides Jonathan Ross with all the lawyers he's ever going to need for free. And when Renee Good's family sues, if they prevail, guess who's going to pay the civil damages? You and me, the taxpayer, not Jonathan Ross. So this high-minded attorney, Waddle, who dropped out Monday, tried to turn cowardice into nobility. Why were you offering pro bono legal services to Renee Good's alleged murderer? Because you're a man of principle? What did Waddle do? He helped Jonathan Ross fill out paperwork, and he helped him contact the Department of Justice so Jonathan Ross would know how to get a free lawyer paid for by our tax dollars. What a good man Chris Waddle is. What a man of principle he is. Well, Business Insider reporting that Polymarket and Kalshi, these are two betting sites where people wager on news events. All right, I'll talk about it on a future show. All right, I'm not going to bring it up. Business Insider reporting the odds of a government shutdown this Friday on the betting sites have skyrocketed since the killing of Alex Preddy. This is more Democrats say they will not vote in favor of a Department of Homeland Security funding bill without restrictions on ICE. Now, the government is scheduled to shut down on Friday. Republicans need 60 votes, and the math is it's not there because the moderate firewall within the Democratic Party has turned into a hard no on the Department of Homeland Security spending bill. We have moderate senators like Jackie Rosen of Nevada, Tim Kaine of Virginia. They voted for the continuing resolution in November. They now say they will choose a government shutdown over funding ICE without restrictions. Tom Suozzi represents Republican George Santos's old district in the suburbs of New York City. Remember George Santos? To their credit, the Republicans expelled him from Congress, and they had a special election, and a Democrat, Tom Suozzi, won. It's a purple district. And Tom Suozzi, because it's a purple district, was one of the 7 Democrats who voted in favor of the Department of Homeland Security spending package last week. But now he says he regrets that decision. Suozzi on Monday said, "I fail to see this funding bill as a referendum on the illegal and immoral conduct of ICE in Minneapolis." Really? It took Preddy's murder for you to have a come to Jesus moment, but not Renee Good's, not everything that's been going on for the past year. New York Democrat Laura Gillen was also one of the 7 Democrats who voted for the Department of Homeland Security bill, but on Monday, she too expressed regret and called for the impeachment of Kristi Noem because of Kristi Noem's self-dealing, her targeting of children, and deporting and arresting U.S. citizens, as well as Kristi Noem's careless response to the murders in Minneapolis. That's what New York Democrat Laura Gillen said. Well, as we talked about on yesterday's show, gun rights groups like the National Rifle Association, by the way, somebody corrected me. I posted what I thought was a picture behind me of the National Rifle Association's logo, and it was the National Recovery Act logo from the Roosevelt administration, the Great Depression, the National Recovery Administration. And so thank you to one of my listeners for pointing that out. By the way, if I make any mistakes, leave a comment. I correct all my mistakes. So gun rights groups like the National Rifle Association are now infuriated by the new White House talking point that Alex Preddy deserved to be shot because you don't show up to a protest with a firearm, even though Minnesota is a right to carry state and Preddy had a license to carry a gun. The BBC reports that in the immediate aftermath of this murder, Kristi Noem, besides calling Preddy a domestic terrorist, also said he should not have carried a gun to a protest. Senator Lindsey Graham said, "An armed man trying to impede an arrest is a recipe for disaster." These are all the gun rights activists from my cold, dead hands. FBI Director Kash Patel said that Preddy didn't have a license to carry a firearm. He did. But why would we expect Kash Patel to get his facts straight? Patel appeared on Benny Johnson's show Monday. Benny Johnson is a far-right conspiracy nut. This is what Kash Patel said, quote, "What I'm asking people to do on the ground in Minnesota is, why would you bring a firearm in a situation that is so volatile right now, where so many arrests have been made, where so many people are coordinating to attack and expose federal law enforcement officers? Why would you bring a gun?" Patel added, "That is just not smart. It is just not going to lead to a good scenario." Whoa, 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 whoa. What happened to a good guy with a gun? The only thing that stops a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. So are you defaming Alex Preddy? Are you saying an ICU nurse who works for the VA isn't a good guy with a gun? I thought the only thing that stops a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. And now all these Second Amendment enthusiasts are saying you shouldn't bring a gun to a protest in a right to carry state. The Daily Beast reports that Kash Patel had no problem with armed protesters in Virginia earlier this month showing up at the state capitol to demonstrate against the new Democratic governor, Abigail Spanberger. The Daily Beast reported on Monday that Kash Patel raised money for Kyle Rittenhouse so he could file a defamation lawsuit after he was acquitted, after being put on trial for killing 2 Black Lives Matter protesters. Patel said, "We need to help Kyle Rittenhouse clear his name." It's a great photograph of Kyle Rittenhouse on the ground after he just shot 2 Black Lives Matter protesters. What a hero. Well, he is a hero. He was invited to Mar-a-Lago after he was acquitted. Meanwhile, Kash Patel has ordered the FBI to investigate Snapchats of Minnesota residents who are alerting each other to the presence of federal agents. Patel said, quote, "People cannot create a scenario that illegally entraps and puts law enforcement in harm's way." So monitoring the police puts them in harm's way. No, it puts their careers in harm's way. The Independent reporting that ICE agents are depressed. Well, they should be. I mean, they were depressed before they were ICE agents. Depression is anger turned inward. So you become an ICE agent, you get to lash out. You get to, pepper spray women in the face. You shouldn't be depressed. You're getting rid of your anger. Well, they're reportedly unhappy. They're complaining about the amount of hours they have to work and the quotas that Stephen Miller is imposing on them. They have to make thousands of arrests in one day. There are also reports that ICE agents don't like being called Nazis. Well, then stop acting like them. The BBC reporting Trump appears to be softening his approach vis-a-vis Minneapolis. He is reportedly a little shaken up by the behavior of the ICE agents, who he basically told to do this, to terrorize communities. He's not shaken up. He sat and watched the insurrection on January 6th, ate a hamburger, a Diet Coke. He was glued to the television. He's not upset. Trump talked with Minnesota Governor Tim Walz on Monday. The CBC reporting, that's the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, they report Trump said after the call that he and Governor Walz, quote, were on the same wavelength. Meanwhile, the Pioneer Press reporting Pam Bondi, our Attorney General, now demanding that the Minnesota state government turn over voting records to assist her in the investigation into voter fraud that took place in the 2020 election. They're investigating the 2020 election. She's also demanding Minnesota turn over data to help her investigate welfare fraud. They want to destroy Tim Walz on this welfare fraud thing the same way. Remember, Tim Walz is a threat. Anyway, the Minneapolis Star-Tribune reporting Minnesota Secretary of State Steve Simon accused Attorney General Pam Bondi of using the 3,000 immigration agents on the ground in Minnesota as a threat, a signal that if he and Democrats don't cooperate with her politically charged investigations into 2020 voter fraud and welfare fraud, the message is the immigration raids are just going to get nastier. Donald Trump claims his immigration raids in the state are to help Minnesota residents, who he says are the victims of Democratic Party policy that's soft on crime, policy that favors the criminals. That's what J.D. Vance said when he visited Minneapolis on Friday. But the Minneapolis Star-Tribune reports this morning that violent crime in Minneapolis is down before ICE and Border Patrol arrived. But after they arrive, when you've got 3,000 ICE and border agents in Minnesota and St. Paul, the police are now forced to work overtime thanks to the chaos and bloodshed these federal agents are leaving in their wake. The Minneapolis Star-Tribune reports that since these immigration operations began, Minneapolis cops can't take a vacation, and it's costing the city so far $3 million in overtime pay. You know, these ICE agents will often break a car window, drag people out, bring them to the Whipple building, and they just leave the car in the middle of the street, expecting the police to deal with it. They're like Tom and Daisy Buchanan, ICE agents. They just, they destroy people's lives and let somebody else clean up our mess. Whenever I look at ICE agents, I say, boy, they remind me of Tom and Daisy Buchanan, Daisy Buchanan from The Great Gatsby. By the way, F. Scott Fitzgerald, from, I think, St. Paul, Minnesota? I think he's from Minnesota. You know what the F stands for? Feldman. Feldman Scott Fitzgerald. Okay, that's not true. But leave a comment. I think F. Scott Fitzgerald is from St. Paul, Minnesota. Maybe that's why ICE agents remind me of Tom and Daisy Buchanan. Oh, God. Let me just show you. All right, we'll look at the pictures of Tom Homan's wife before I go. Oh, okay. Yeah. The Minneapolis Star-Tribune reporting this morning, ICE agents sent a 2-year-old girl and her father to an ICE detention center in Texas, despite a judge ordering them to release the girl and her father. Lawyers for the family say the father and the 2-year-old daughter are legitimate asylum seekers from Ecuador. They had violated 0 laws. 2-year-old. We have an update on 5-year-old Liam Ramos, who was separated from his mother and taken by ICE agents in Minneapolis, coming home from preschool, and shipped to an ICE detention facility in Texas. He remains there, away from his mother. His mother was in the house. They had people who were going to take the 5-year-old. ICE said nope, and they shipped a 5-year-old to Texas, to a detention facility. But Tom Homan is not a monster. He would never, ever accept $50,000 in cash in a plain brown paper bag in a pay-to-play bribery scam. No, he wouldn't do that. He's a man of principle. I'm David Feldman, reminding you to stay strong and protect the weak. Yeah, I'm doing more shows. There's a lot going on, and I'm focusing on a very specific thing here. Thank you for watching. Leave a comment, please. Yeah. Thank you to Bob and Mila in the chat room for keeping the comments civil. I'm thinking of doing a town hall on Zoom. Let me know if you'll attend. We were doing them in 2024. And so, all right. I guess that covers everything. Subscribe to the show. Hit the like button so I remain in your feed. The issue of shadow banning, they wrote about there is shadow banning going on some platforms. So, you know, I'm going to do this show, even if it's just one person watching. But it would be nice to have some audience. So if you can share this, what do they call it? Be a brand ambassador. That's what somebody said. You know what you should ask? You should ask your audience to be brand ambassadors for you. Yes, they would respond very favorably to that, to be called a brand ambassador. All right. Thank you for listening to me. Stay angry. Don't be violent. Register to vote. Look for somebody who is more vulnerable than you. You can always find somebody who needs help. That's your salvation, saving others. I'm going to try to do a show tomorrow.